Hello, beautiful souls. I am Valeria Maritza here at Healing Through You. I am an infinite being of light, and so are you. Today's guest is Dallisa Hocking. She is a fifth generational psychic medium. I am so excited to have her here. She has studied under so many people, just to name a few, Tony Robbins, Dr. Raymond Moody, John Howen, and Lee Harris, who's an energy healer that I really love and I also follow. So let's welcome her in. I am just so excited to have her here. Welcome, Dallisa. I'm so excited to have you here.
This is going to be a great conversation. Thank you so much for inviting me on the show.
Yeah, I just saw you had an episode with Wisdom from North. I love her. I always watch a lot of people there. So how exciting is that?
Yeah, it was really great talking to her. She's a really good interviewer, which I know you are too, because I've enjoyed your podcast as well.
Thank you.
And yeah, it looks like I'm going to be doing some collaborations with them again with her, Wisdom from North in 2026. So it'll be fun.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
hmm
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for the people who don't know you and they're just brand new to you?
Oh my goodness. So it all started one fateful night 10 years ago. How's that for a dramatic start? So, I was actually a matchmaker and a dating coach 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, that's where my future was headed. And I was also working at a business school in Texas and really just kind of minding my own business in Fort Worth. And I had decided that I was going to go to a workshop on the study of synchronicity at the Omega Institute in New York.
Yes.
Because I grew up family that's like very open
Uh-huh.
to spirits and psychic messages and UFOs and all of that. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go up there and do this retreat last minute. And so I get up there, and all of these different synchronicities happen to me while I'm there. Dr. Eben Alexander, who is a neurosurgeon that had a near death experience, he was the one that was putting the workshop together. He was kind of the host.
Mhm.
And there was amazing people there. But even like an example, when he was up there talking about his near death experience, and part of his message is about a butterfly on the other side. And as he's telling the story, we're inside, and this butterfly comes and like goes around the podium that he's standing at. And all of us sitting there were like, you got to be kidding me.
Gosh.
So that's how this retreat started. And at the very end of it, I just so happened to have an old coworker of mine who had a home in the middle of nowhere, really close to the Omega Institute. He said, "Come over, like, let's catch up." So I leave the retreat and I drive to Peter's place. And we go in, he's making dinner. We're looking at photos, we're watching a movie, and just catching up when the phone rings. And it was a family member letting him know that his aunt, that he loved very much, had died unexpectedly. She had fallen down a flight of stairs.
Mm.
And so I was sitting there as he was getting the news. And so it was late at that point. So, I give Peter my condolences. He goes up, go to bed, and I step and go into the guest bedroom. And I don't really think anything else of it. I used to work with Peter, so I didn't know his family. I'd never seen photos of them. We were looking at like old cat photos and what Peter looked like, 30 years ago. So we didn't look at any family pictures. But that night, his aunt, who had just died hours before, came through to me, and I was asleep, and it was in like this astral dream space.
Hmm.
And I could see what she looked like. And through the use of telepathy, because we all have that ability, she wanted me to tell her nephew that she was okay and that she had made it to the other side. So the next morning, I'm coming out of the dream state and I'm realizing what happened. And, my grandmother, I used to sit in her living room with her, and she would tell me about spirits that she would see and what clothes they had on. And my grandmother was quite amazing. And so I decided, you know what? This is what my grandmother used to tell me about all the time. I'm just going to go tell Peter.
Uh-huh.
So I go into the kitchen, and luckily he's very open-minded. Um, but I said, "Hey, Peter, your aunt, she came to me last night, and you kind of walk on tiptoe a little bit because you don't want to hurt them more,
Yeah.
in the state of grief." And he said, "Well, what did she look like?" And I described the way her hair fell and her facial features. And he said, that's her. And I said, okay, well, she wants you to know she's okay. And she made it to the other side. And that's where it all started. So a couple days later, I'd flown back to Texas at
Wait,
that
wait, wait,
point.
wait, 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 wait. Hold on. Let me back
Yeah.
up a little. So
Yeah.
you tell him this, he accepts this. He's like,
Yes.
okay, he's good. And then
Yeah.
did you have any feeling of relief, confirmation, like, yes, like, okay, like this was a real thing once he gave you that confirmation, or like what happened for you?
Yeah. Actually, it came a few days later.
Uh-huh.
So he was convinced it was her.
Hmm.
I felt like this was absolutely a real experience. But I think it was 2 days later, uh, I was having lunch with a friend in Fort Worth, and I was telling her this whole story
Uh-huh.
when my phone goes off. And I could tell it was a text message and that there was a photo. And so I look at my phone, and it's Peter, and he had snapped a photo of his aunt that was on display at her service that day. And I literally dropped my phone and I started crying in this restaurant. And my friend goes, oh my God, what's wrong?" And I said, "This is exactly how she looked when I
Wow.
was at Peter's house." So I know that it was absolutely her. And she looked just like she did in the picture that he sent me. That's what she looked like when she came through to let me know that she was okay. And so that's really how it all got started.
Wow, that's what a confirmation. Amazing. It's like she knew, hey, they're going to choose this picture at my service, so I'm going to show myself like this.
Yeah, because I've seen on the other side, right, that we can choose
Hmm.
what age we present at. But when she came through, you're right. She looked exactly like she did in the photo that Peter sent. So, spirit and the divinity and the universe is so brilliant in the way that it brings messages forward. But yeah, that happened 10 years ago in August. It
Wow.
was 10 years. So, I still share that story just whenever I have the opportunity because I think it tells us, reminds everyone that miracles and things out of the ordinary, surprising things can happen to all of us.
Hmm.
And that these really beautiful moments, I think a lot of the time they're just looking for like an open doorway to come in. And so I think that's more of like a frequency match, which we can get into more of. But I think that most people are afraid to
Yeah.
experience what I went through with his Aunt Barbara, but it has absolutely changed my entire life. And I would wish that for anyone that they could go through something like that.
You said that the message that she gave you was, I made it to the other side. Like, um, I find that kind of peculiar. Like, is that something you feel that Peter needed to hear or know? Or like, is there another place to go? Or like,
That's a great question. I think that the impression I got was because she died suddenly
hmm.
and she had fallen down a flight of stairs, that she wanted him to know and that he could share that with the rest of the family, that even though it was sudden and traumatic, that she left her body and that she was, at peace in this other dimension, this other space,
Hmm.
which I always call the other side. But more and more, it just feels like it's in the room next door and
Yeah.
that they're not in some like far off place in the clouds. It literally feels like it's this like imprint of energy over the top of our energy. So, yeah.
Some people might feel or think that if they're coming through, that they're not on the other side, that maybe they're like in between or stuck or like didn't make it or something. Can you talk a little bit more or clarify more about that?
Yeah, I've only had a couple of experiences over the last decade where I've seen somebody that hasn't fully transitioned. And in those experiences, I have offered to help them move to the
Hmm.
other side. And sometimes they say yes, and sometimes they say no. An example of this is I was in a casino. Uh, I was working there in the HR department,
Hmm.
and there was a murder that had happened in the casino. And this was a couple days. It happened like over a weekend. And so I was feeling like this knocking energetically from this person, even while I was still at home and not at work, and wanting to know like what happened to me, right? Like
Mm.
this man couldn't quite like figure out. And I think backing up a moment, I think psychic mediums have like this energy or an antenna that this light that emits. And so when a spirit is confused or, they need help, they know where to go. And so I could feel this knocking from him, just inside of myself. And so when I got to work, I actually stood in the casino. He was there in spirit form and he wanted to know what happened. So I told him, and I wasn't talking to myself. I was doing it through telepathy.
I was gonna ask
And
you, were you like speaking
yeah,
out loud? Like how was
oh,
it?
they would have fired me if I was standing in the middle of the casino
Like the
talking to
ghost
myself.
whisperer?
Yeah. So I'm explaining it to him. I see all of these loved ones of him like come down to like greet him and open up this big portal of light. And then as soon as he saw them, he crossed over and it was like in a flash, he was gone. So that's an example of a time where the spirit's like, yes, please help me. I don't know what happened here and I'm trying to figure it out.
Hmm.
So that can sometimes come through in like unexpected deaths where they really didn't see it coming, and they want to understand it, from the earth perspective. But I used to have a psychic stage show, like a 90-minute show where I did audience readings in Las Vegas.
Hmm.
Um, and that hotel was built in the 1930s. It was very haunted. And there was this room up towards the top of the hotel that was like this gathering spot where all these spirits would come together. And so I would sit in there and with a few other people, and sometimes the news would come there because they'd want to capture it for Halloween footage or whatever.
Right.
So I would ask these spirits, like, I can open up this energy and help you cross over. And many of them said, no, we like it here. So we're going to stay here. So I do think there is this in between space. But typically, if there is somebody that's looking to connect with a loved one that's passed away, they 98, 99% of the time, I have found that they are on the other side fully.
Hmm.
But sometimes there'll be somebody that will, be like, oh, I feel like a lot of unrest. I feel like there's somebody that passed away that's around me that is trying to get my attention. Could be something in there about how maybe they haven't fully transitioned or they're afraid to leave you behind,
Hmm.
And so it kind of depends on the situation, but I've kind of seen the yeses, the nos, and the in-betweens.
Amazing. Do you feel that that room in that hotel was maybe kind of like a portal?
Yeah, it felt like the comings and goings of spirits. And I would go even into some of the hotel rooms and open up the connection and see if anybody had died in that hotel room or if there was anybody that had stayed in that room that wanted to come through from the other side. Um, and so I could pick up on details in different rooms as well. But that room up at the top specifically felt more like a highway, is the word I'm getting.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. And they all just seemed to like enjoy this highway space they had created. But yeah, looking at the different hotel rooms was interesting. I remember there was one where a man had come through and he kept saying that he was a journalist and he gave all these different details. And, I was saying them out loud because I had a few people with me as I was doing this. And by the time we exited the room and went out into the hallway, one of the individuals that was with me, she had found him. And I think it was like a Wikipedia page or something.
Wow.
And it had all of the details that he had just said when we were inside of the room. So that was really interesting. But he had said that he had gone through that area and was writing different pieces. And like I could hear like the click clacking of like the typewriter
Hmm.
noises. So yeah, spirit is amazing. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So, okay, so now let's go back a little bit. Your friend Peter was the one with his aunt who opened you up. And then how did you continue to pursue that? Like, were you feeling like, I mean, I know you came up from a family that was very open and your grandmother was always talking about this. So, did you just go back to your family first to ask, or how did you lean more into your gifts?
Oh gosh. Oh, it's like so fascinating thinking back on this whole experience. So I would sit in my living room. I had this tiny little apartment in Fort Worth, Texas, and I would sit on the couch and channel. And that's how I started practicing. So I'm a Gemini rising. So my mind is always trying to like figure things out.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, gosh, I was just meditating a bunch at the Omega Institute, which is why I think Aunt Barbara could come through because my frequency
Mm,
was so open.
yeah.
And so I thought, gosh, what if I tried to replicate the environment? Like, could I do this again? So, um, there was Dr. Eben Alexander and his partner Karen. They have a company, Sacred Acoustics, which is like a binaural beats company. And so during the retreat, they were sharing a bunch of their sacred acoustic recordings, and that's what we were meditating with. And they were absolutely incredible. I am not an affiliate, it's just a product I love. Um, and so in Texas, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go on their website. I'm gonna get the recording and I'm gonna put my headphones in and let's just see what happens. So I found that by putting myself back in that meditative state, that it opened up my frequency really like high, high, high in the energy scale. And so what I did is I reached out to, I can't remember how many people, but I'd say 10 people estimated that I knew, but didn't know what was going on in their life at the moment. And people that I felt like would be open to me
Hmm.
channeling for them. And so
Ah.
I would ask for their permission. They would say yes. And then I would go into the sacred acoustics meditation with my pen and my paper, and I would write their first name at the top of the piece of paper. And then I would just say, okay, whatever I need to know and write down for this person, go ahead and bring that through. And I would get downloads. I would see imagery in movies. I would hear words and phrases. I would feel things in my body, and I would just write everything down. So then what I did is I would get on the phone with the person. I said, don't tell me anything about what's happening in your life. Let me get through all this information.
Hmm.
And then you can tell me if it's accurate because I'm testing this. And so I would do that. And people would say, how did you know that? Nobody knows that. And I thought, oh, it gives me chills as I say that, which is
Yeah.
confirmation. So that's how it started was doing these beta test channelings. And then I realized like this is really happening. And
Wow.
I, in hindsight, I think part of it was my grandmother was getting closer to the end of her life,
Hmm.
and she's who I get my gifts from. And so I think there was like this transfer of, okay, I'm going to go ahead and begin my journey to cross over, and I'm going to pass this over to you. You're going to take this baton and work with the energy. And because I do think that psychic abilities can and do run in families.
Hmm.
And I think that people can be absolutely born with more of this antenna or this frequency, but I don't think we have to be born with it. I think you can develop it as well. Just like, somebody who's like a world class gymnast, who's won all these gold medals. They probably were exceptional far beyond their years at a very young age.
Hmm.
Where there's other people who really want to be a gymnast, but they aren't quite as exceptional out of the gate and they have to train really hard to get there. So I think that it's a mix between natural gifts and the will and determination for anyone else to
Hmm.
want to develop them as well. Because I think it's open to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, I do believe also that we all have the gift and we are all able to, communicate and tap on onto different realms if we want it. And I feel that that's like the most important part is the part of allowing it or accepting it as a good thing versus fearing it or thinking it's something, bad or evil because of conditioning or their beliefs. And then of course it's not going to open up for you.
Yeah, and I have seen some denser, heavier frequencies over the years. Usually when I see something like that, like an entity, like a darker entity, it's usually inside of someone that has an addiction. Uh
Yes.
yeah, like gambling or, alcoholics, drug use, even like things like marijuana, if it's like laced with something, I've even seen entities come through that as well. And they are different types and feelings of entities depending on what the addiction is. But I've seen them a lot of times hosting in the back of like the neck area. So like the upper back and neck is where I
I
usually
got
see
chills
them.
because I actually worked with a client once that had an attachment and it was right there on the back shoulder and I could see it. And when you said it, it just brought that memory back. I'm like, oh yeah, I got chills on that one.
Yeah. And so I think there are things that are out there that I can understand why somebody might be fearful about it, but I think it's a frequency match.
Yeah.
So if you are doing your healing work and you're at a higher frequency, which is like living more with like your purpose and joy and happiness and fulfillment, like if you're feeling like you're at that higher frequency, in my experience, you attract in uh, beings or helpers or spirits that are at that same frequency. But
Hmm.
if you're going through some kind of denser energy like shame or anger or guilt, then you may open up a portal that you don't want to open up because that frequency match would likely bring in things that you don't want it to bring in. And I've heard stories of people that had been alcoholics and they felt attacked by I remember one person describing it as a demon and having to basically exercise and release that demon and quit alcohol altogether because they were afraid that entity would come back.
That could be really scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want a demon hanging around. I'm good.
I do believe, and tell me your take on this, that all souls, all beings are of the light, and that when we do encounter someone or something that is more of the darker energy of the lower frequencies, is because they're just separated from who they truly are, the light being that they are, and they've forgotten it, and we are able to remind them maybe, and so that they can see who they are, remember, and then the light comes through them. How do you
Oh
feel about that?
gosh. I don't know if I've ever been asked this question before. It's so interesting. What do I think about the dark entities? Um, I do feel like what we were just talking about with the association of addiction.
Hmm.
I think those entities are attached to the different like substances, for example. So if it's pain pills, I think that entity has found like an energetic home in those pills, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. If we're talking about like a person that
Hmm.
has passed and their soul, I believe wholeheartedly in reincarnation. And I believe that we have been all players, all parts. We
Yeah.
have been the good, the bad, the ugly, everything
Mm-hmm.
in between. And so I don't think our natural state is evil,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think that with Earth School, this advanced classroom, I think evil exists
Yeah.
in order to be a teacher. And I know that irks a lot of people when I say that, because they'll hear, like, well, why did that person have to die? Or why did this happen? And it's like, we are not in nirvana. Earth is not heaven. Okay. So this is a really advanced classroom. And most of the time, it's more advanced souls that decide to incarnate here because of all the trials and tribulations. But I do believe that some of the people in our lives that were the hardest relationships or the most challenging encounters we've ever had, that those most of the time are a soul contract that we have opted before we were born to have in this incarnation because of the specific lessons that those teachers actually brought into us. And so I always say, like, because I've worked with thousands of people at this point, and I
Mm-hmm.
get a lot of people telling me their life story, right? And a lot of people will say, like, oh, I have a horrible relationship with fill in the blank, whether that's your mom, your sister, whatever, whoever. I would encourage anybody listening that has that situation, maybe just out of curiosity, ask yourself, like, if this person, let's say it's your sister, if my sister was one of the greatest teachers of my life, what did she sign up to teach me?
Mm.
And look at it from that perspective. So I do think that we go back into the natural state of being when we cross over, which is more of like a neutral, uplifting energy.
Mm-hmm.
But here on Earth, it's a different story.
For sure. Yeah. Um, I was thinking of I don't know if you heard about Suzanne Gizman.
Oh, she was one of the people with Dr. Eben Alexander at the Omega Institute.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was, so 3D, so like analytical, like working for the government, and she has this experience, and now she's this evidential medium. And for some reason her name came up when you were talking about we don't have to be born with it. We can teach ourselves. And her name always comes up for me because it's like, what better example of someone who's completely 3D, completely skeptical, to have turned 180 degrees and like go into this way. I don't know why this is coming up for me to like talk right now.
Probably because when I was telling you the story of Dr. Alexander discussing his near death experience and the butterfly going around the podium,
Ah,
I was trying to remember her name and it completely escaped me.
ah,
Yeah, so you were picking up on that.
okay, yeah.
But I also have her book that she wrote. I think it's called The Medium and the Priest,
Uh-huh.
and it is phenomenal. It was one of the very first books I ever read about being a medium, and yeah, it's incredible. So anybody that's interested in this topic, I think it's called the Medium and the Priest.
Yeah. I think she's
um
got a couple of
yeah,
books now.
okay. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I'll
yeah.
have to check those out. She's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I find her incredible, especially if you have somebody who's very skeptical in your life. Like that's her story is just one of those stories that is like, oh, okay, like, she's intelligent, she's educated, she's all of these things, and it can still happen for you.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, she's got an incredible story, and I've seen her do more and more podcasts lately, so I think she's like really inspirational for a lot of people, like you said, that may be more skeptic or
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
understand like how to work with the gift or anything like that. So I'm glad you brought her up.
Yeah. I do have to pause here and just like acknowledge your cat. What an amazing, most beautiful animal that is. Oh my gosh.
This is Miss Frankie. Um,
She is
she is very
gorgeous.
intelligent. And she recently got a haircut, so she's got her little lion outfit on now.
Oh, she
Which
looks amazing.
she's a desert lynx, and so her grandfather was a bobcat,
Uh-huh.
And so she is very, very smart. But yeah, I didn't even realize she jumped up there. She
Oh, she's been
loves,
coming back and forth, and I just been like staring at her and looking at her. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's just incredibly gorgeous.
oh, I'm so glad she made an appearance. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's her. I have two cats, and sometimes it's the other one, but she must want to feel like she's in the spotlight today. So
Oh, she definitely is. So welcome.
that's funny.
Okay. Um, so okay, I have another question for you. After I really find it really fascinated that you thought, let me have this beta testing and like, because I did something similar with when I started figuring out my gifts, that I also started doing like the sessions with strangers. Because if I knew them and I did it, I would hang up or get off and I would say, yeah, they just told me that because they know me. So I would still not believe in me, in what was happening. So I had to do this with strangers in order to believe. And then once I did that, just like you, I was like, okay, yeah, this is something, and then continue on. So I just wanted to go back to that part because I feel that so many people may be going through something similar to what either you or me or somebody else has gone through. And I feel that trying it out on different people, especially people who are you're not as close with, it's such an important part of your own journey to begin to believe in yourself, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you bring up a really great point about strangers
Mm,
because I have found that doing readings for strangers is a much easier and the information is so much more accurate
yeah.
than trying to read for somebody I know because I think we're too close to it. Like our brain gets in the way and it's,
Yes, we start
yeah.
thinking what could happen or something, right?
Yeah. And people have often asked me, like, well, can you see your own life? I'm like, I can see other people's lives much easier than I can see my own. I think it's what's the saying? Like, it's hard to see the picture when you're the frame. So we're
Yeah.
too close to it. Like we can't see it as clearly. And so it's why I think a lot of psychics, mediums, astrologers go to somebody else
Yes, absolutely.
to be like, hey, what do you see about my life?
Mhm.
Because we can't really always see it ourselves. So it's really helpful to go and talk to someone else about it. Yeah, or like trade sessions, and help each other out. But yeah, I think it's an important thing to remember that even if it's scary to think about reading for a stranger, it's actually a lot easier.
It really is because there's no attachment to our mind of what we can think about or make up or believe. It's just you're just speaking what you're receiving because you have no
Yes.
idea about the person in front of you.
Yeah. And most of the time, like when I do a session, which are few and far between these days, but because I love teaching,
Hmm.
but I will close my eyes at the beginning. So I don't even look at them
Uh-huh.
because I do them over Zoom. And so I'll just say all the things that I'm getting like right out of the gate. And yeah, it's fascinating because then I'll open my eyes and come back. They're like, oh my gosh, how'd you know all that stuff? I'm like, oh, okay, good. Because even if you've been doing this a long time or, you've gotten really comfortable with the gift, there's still like this feeling of, am I going to get it right? Am I going to nail this? Are they going to love what I'm saying? Is it going to be helpful? It's kind of like that feeling before you go out on stage to do like a
Hmm.
show or a public speaking engagement, or you got to talk in front of, group of coworkers, that feeling of like, is what I'm going to say work? Is it going to be impactful? Is it going to make sense? And so I still get that feeling before I go into a session of like, well, all right, I hope this all works, because it's really a test and just letting go. You
Yeah.
have to let go and surrender in order for the information to come through.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I also always tell this to people that, especially ones who are just learning about themselves, that we all go through this. Like, it doesn't matter how long we've been doing it. we still go through that. And I think it's part of the human being of the doubt, am I good enough? It still comes up. I mean, you know you're good when you have the confirmation, right? But you still have that feeling, just like you said, of like, is it going to work this time?
Yeah, I really had to get over that when I had my stage show in Las
Mm.
Vegas. Now I've
Ah.
since moved that to the Pacific Northwest. But it's that feeling of like, oh God, I have people in the audience that, are here to watch me quote unquote like perform.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what's this experience going to be like? Because doing a psychic stage show, at least for me, like I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And so for 90 minutes, I have to completely just tune into what's coming through and let go and just let the information guide me. But that is a true act of faith stepping out on stage when you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, and when you're on stage, you have all kinds of people. I mean, they might all be there because they believe, but you're still going to have your skeptics in between, right? Or the people
Yep.
who were dragged in by a family member don't want to be there.
Yes. Yes. And there's a section of the show where I let audience members ask any general questions about the world. And I remember there was a person who asked before the last presidential election who was going to win.
Hmm.
And I told them, and I was correct, but they literally got up and walked out of the showroom. God,
Sorry,
I,
just
I
the
really
messenger
try
here.
to I try to stay as neutral as possible as somebody who channels as much as I do. Like I really try to stay very, very neutral on all things in the world. Um, because I think it's important to the integrity of the work.
Hmm.
And so I was just telling them the prediction because that's what I got as the answer. But yeah, it's interesting. Some people really want the truth of what spirit is saying, and some people just want to be validated about what they think.
Hmm.
And so you're not always going to please everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Um, what is something that you would want to share with someone who is watching this right now and is really intrigued and really excited and nervous at the same time about developing their own skills?
I would start small. I think daily meditation
Hmm.
is one of the best ways to get the energy warmed up. I personally use the app called Insight Timer.
Hmm.
They have thousands of free meditations on there. You can also find really great ones on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
But I would find some, if you're brand new to this, I would do like a 5 minute or a 10 minute, warm up to 15 or 20. But I would do it every day and set, the practice that you're going to do that. So for me, I do it at night. And I've actually found that my dreams are more vivid doing meditation right before I go to sleep. And so that might be helpful because we do get information through our dream state as well. So meditation, I would say for sure. Doing like journaling, but opening it up where you're going to allow whatever needs to come through on the paper. So I like putting at the top of a piece of paper, what do I need to know today?
Hmm.
And then allowing the universe to, or your guides, your angels, whoever it is you set that intention to connect with, allowing them to start coming forward and stepping in closer. And you may find that the pen, starts moving really fast, or that you don't necessarily recognize the handwriting when you get done. And so that's part of warming up the channeling, but doing it in a written way. And then I would also start working with oracle cards. So I work with oracle and tarot, but I think when you first get started, oracle cards are much easier. And so I would pick a deck that you feel drawn to, going to a like metaphysical or crystal shop, whatever you have close to you, if you have one. I would go and actually look at the decks. Most of the times they'll have them open and look at the cards and like see what you feel most drawn to. And then I would get that deck of cards and then either in the morning or at night, pull one, like
Hmm.
shuffle and ask the deck, like, what do I need to know today? And pull one and then have it somewhere where you're going to see it for the next 24 hours. And that will get you more comfortable with working with tools like cards. So I think the combination of meditation, journaling, and oracle cards is a really great place to start because you're starting with yourself and you're getting clear on that. And then you can start working with other people. But I think you've got to really get centered on your own energy first.
Yeah, those are all great tools and ideas. Yeah, because when we start, you really need to know how you're receiving. What is real? What is your mind? How you're getting in the way? What you can see, for example, like you said in the journaling, that looks like, oh, I just made that up, or oh yeah, like that was profound. Like where did that come from? So great
Yeah.
tools.
Yeah,
Uh,
our higher self even knows like an incredible amount of information.
yeah.
So even if you don't feel comfortable talking to guides or angels at first, like maybe you just want to set the intention that you're communicating with your higher self, the highest part of your energy that is on the other side. You can ask your higher self the same question, what do I need to know today? And you can tap into that deep knowledge that you already have within you on a soul level. So I would just select whatever you think feels best for you. And whatever that is good. Don't worry about the judgment and what other people think if you end up telling people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would feel like if I started doing that to begin with, I wouldn't share with anyone yet. I would just like try to see what am I receiving first.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because I remember 10 years ago and when I realized like, oh, these gifts are here to stay and this is
Hmm.
like what I'm doing now, that there came a day where I really felt like I had to tell people because it was now just such a big part of who I am.
Hmm.
And I was starting to do more and more phone sessions. And so it was growing. So I remember feeling anxious about posting on social media because 10 years ago, if you're posting something on social media, like you're making your grand announcement,
For sure.
that's where you did it was you went. And so for me, I went on Facebook and I made that announcement. And I did have a couple people that were not kind,
Hmm.
but I also just feel like anybody that tries to put you down or judge your experience, they're probably not for you, or, they're going through their own things, or they have a blind spot to what they're capable of doing. And so just try not to take it personal if you ever tell someone and they have an adverse reaction to it. It's not personal to you.
Oh, I love that. I love that because I do feel that so many of us have our circle of friends and acquaintances, and the majority of it feels like are not in line with what we're going through. So it feels like a huge shift in the people that you hang out with, and you're able to share who you truly are once these gifts come up.
Yes, yes. And when you own it and you're not afraid to own it, then I
Mhm.
think you end up attracting in some of the most incredible people you'll ever
Yes.
meet because they're on the same
Your tribe, you're
wavelength.
getting your tribe.
Yeah. So I would just say be whoever you are and don't worry about what other people think of you. Just like in the four agreements, it's like don't take anything personally is one
Mhm.
of the four agreements. And I always try to remember that it's never personal. Even the good stuff that somebody says about you, it's not personal because they're seeing it through their own filter of their own life experiences and what they believe is good or bad. And so I think the key to the game is like, don't take anything personally that someone says. You can be gracious and say thank you if it's something kind. But it should be kind of just like through the sand going through your fingers. Like you just kind of let it flow and you don't get attached to anything anybody says about you.
I love that. That's great advice. Do you have or did you have a time where like when you mentioned like the spirit of the person who um had crossed in that casino, um like a filter of like people just wanting to come in? Are you able to turn it off, turn it on, like something to protect you from a lot of voices or a lot of different spirits coming to you at all times of the day?
Heck yes. So I've learned that over the years that we can set boundaries with spirit. And so I have made it very clear, only come to me when I'm working. And so they know when I'm working, they can see if I'm in a session or
Uh-huh.
going on stage. Like only come to me when I'm working. Any other time, do not come through to me unless it's something urgent that I really need to know.
Oh, that's good.
And they've left me alone. Like I'll still get nudges and things when I'm not working, or I'll still get downloads, but I don't get bombarded by spirits. So I've been very lucky in that way, but I think it's just because I'm really stern. And if I feel like something's trying to come in that is not welcome at that time, I send it away. I tell it to go. And if it's not going on its own, I'll have Archangel Michael help to move the energy out and away. Um, but I've actually had, this is what's coming in as I'm talking about this. I've had three different instances where I've had premonitions of crimes
Mm.
before they've happened. And so I wasn't working, during these three instances. One was at a bank, one was at an Airbnb, and where was the other one? Oh, at a grocery store. So I was not working, but I feel like because Spirit brought in information about these crimes, and in all three cases, they were right before they happened.
Hmm.
So it felt like it was this like urgency because it was about to happen. But I also think in hindsight that it was Spirit's way of being like, look, like this is real. This is proof because I can then share the stories of what happened because somebody listening might be like, wow, I had something like that happen to me, or I didn't know spirit could work like that. So I think certain things have happened just so I can tell the stories.
Wow. So on those incidents, that before the crime happened, was it more to like make you aware or for you to move away from where it's going to happen or to prevent it?
So none of the three
Mhm.
I was able to prevent, which is, raises a bigger question of like, well, then why tell me if I can't do anything about it? But I'll briefly give you what happened in all three because one of them it did help. It didn't
Mhm.
prevent it, but it helped. So the first one, I was parked in front of a bank and I needed to get a cashier's check, and it was a Friday afternoon. And I'm sitting there and I could feel this energy of a robbery. And then I could see what looked like a man, not in the present moment, but it was almost like I was seeing like a weird like kink in the timeline.
Uh-huh.
And I could see like this man's energy in this weird way he was walking in front of the ATM machine that I was parked in front of. And I could tell he wasn't there like physically in that moment, but I did get this feeling of the robbery. And I thought, oh God, I have to go in there. I have to get this cashier's check. Like, so I go in, I come back out, nothing happens. Oh, thank God. So I can't remember, maybe a half hour later, my parents send me a text message and they said, whatever you do, don't go to the bank near your house.
Like, been there.
Well, too late. So what it ended up happening is the ATM I was parked in front of, a man had followed a woman who used that ATM machine, held her and her baby at gunpoint, and robbed her. So I was actually seeing him, and so much so that I ended up being one of those like psychics everyone laughs about that calls the police tip line
Hmm.
because I was like, maybe something I saw could be helpful. And so I just called them. I don't know if they ever did anything with it, but I just described what I saw with him and all that. But the second one, I was at a grocery store with my mom on Halloween,
Hmm.
and everything was fine for the first 15, 20 minutes. And we get to the back of the store, and I start feeling a lot of anxiety. And I start getting a download that people are running towards the back of the store and exiting out of the exit in the back. And so I don't say anything at first, but my mom knows me well enough to know that something's up. And so she asks me, "What's going on with you? Are you okay?" I said, I think that there's going to be an issue. And I told her about the people running, and then I heard in another aisle, she's like, "Okay, I got to get one more thing." So we get over into this other aisle. Of course, my mom, she has to buy like one more thing for my dad, his lemonade. When I'm like, "Hey, I think there's something's going to happen in the store. We got to go." And she's got to go buy lemonade. But anyway, so we're in that aisle, and I could hear two men fighting. And I turned to her and I said, "Do you hear that?" She said, "No." Okay. So I feel like this altercation happening. So then we really hurry up and check out the groceries. We get out of the store again. We're like, "Ooh, okay, made it. Nothing happened." And then the next day, my mom was getting her hair done, and the hair lady said, "Oh, did you hear what happened at the store?" And what had happened were two men followed each other in from the parking lot. This was a store that was actually down the street from the one I was in. They were just using the store I was in to
Mm,
relay what was happening. Because it's a very similar setup the two stores had. So two men, and then they went in the store and they had a gun. And so everyone in the store started running and they ran to the back of the store and exit and used the exit door out the back of the store. So
wow.
we had the timestamp from the receipt. So
Hmm.
I was getting it right before it happened. And then the third one was the one that actually really helped me in advance. I was at an Airbnb and I was traveling by myself, and I was in bed reading a book, getting ready to go to sleep. And Spirit said, "Where is your stun gun?" I thought, what? So I'm like, "It's right there. Let me grab it, I guess." Because I guess, and they said, "There's going to be a break in." Okay. So I have the stun gun next to me. And I don't know how I was able to fall asleep, but I fell asleep. And around midnight, somebody burst through the front door of the
Wow.
Airbnb. And I popped right out of that bed and scared the person off. And so that was a time where it was like, that was absolutely
Wow.
incredible to have that downloaded in advance. Now, was that person malicious? I don't know, but why were they coming through the front door of my Airbnb? And so Spirit had brought that in about 2 to 3 hours before that happened. So that was very helpful.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
On that note, you've also been able to predict some big world things happening. I saw that you predicted something big happening in 2019, right before the world shut down. Um, is there anything that you would feel comfortable sharing of what you may see coming up, maybe for the next month or so at the end of this year?
Oh gosh, we are in such a time. And I do believe we selected to incarnate right here, right now,
Yeah.
because of everything that we are going to witness. But I also think we wanted to be here because of what happens on the rebuilding side.
Mm,
And so I think that being alive right now is like one of the wildest experiences of human history. I think, and I'm sure you'd have similar situations where the timing can get really fickle
mm,
because in the psychic realm, like sometimes you can feel like, oh, this is going to happen. And it's like you can feel it viscerally that the energy is coming in and it's going to be here really quickly. Other times it like floats out in this like orb of energy in front of me where I'm like, I can see it coming, but it doesn't feel like it's like right here, right now. I do think in the next 3 months, we are going to see drastic changes and it's going to happen really fast. There's something in astrology that's happening in February. It's Neptune and Saturn conjunct. in the sign of Aries at 0 degrees. 0 degrees of Aries is like the very, very first degree of all of the zodiac signs.
Wow.
So to me, cosmically, it feels like this massive, like, reset. And so I've also asked spirit through channeling, like, what is coming? And they said it's going to be layers. It's not going to just be like that earthquake. It's not just going to be like that shooting. It's not going to be just that war. Like, it's all of these things that are basically overlapping each other that's
Hmm.
going to lead to this big compound, because spirit is referred to it as the dismantling, that we are in essence, if you were to think of the tarot card of the tower, we are
Hmm.
in the tower card moment. This is where we're at. And in the tower card, it's this illustration of a tower that's on fire, and you have two people leaping from the burning building. Of course, I don't want anyone doing that, but it's this like visual representation of the structure burning down. The other side of that card, the next like chapter of that card, you could say, is the phoenix rising from the ashes. I don't even think symbolically like the world is that on fire yet compared to where I think it's going, because spirit has been very clear that basically every system that's in place is going to be a part of the dismantling and the rebuilding. That is things like real estate and healthcare, technology, the workforce, all of it, food distribution, supply chain. It feels like all of it is going to change in some way. And I also been shown that the more self reliant we are, the better we'll actually do through the next like few years, because of the amount of change that's going to happen. So I've often told my students and my community, like, do you have everything you need at your house or where you live that you think would sustain you for a while? Do you think that you could just live behind those walls and not have to leave? And the amount of time is going to vary depending on where you live. I personally kind of plan for 3 months. But there are some people that do longer and some that do much shorter, and some that say, I can't do any prepping. Like, it's not in my budget. Or,
Hmm.
and what I say to those folks is, I do think there's going to be a huge emphasis on your local community and
Yeah,
who you live near and who and what groups you are plugged into. Because I think your local community is going to become even more important than any kind of national government or organization. It feels like the locals are going to be like the saving grace in what's happening. And I also think more and more people will learn how to garden and produce their own food, because there will be so many issues getting food that either can get to you or that is reliably safe. um, so it feels like in some ways we're going back to like very simple times, that we have never seen in our lifetimes. But I'd also remind people that there have been generations, like maybe it's your grandparents or, great grandparents, depending on where they lived. They also went through like really difficult times, and they were resilient, and a lot of them made it through. So we're not unique in that, but I do think this is like the Super Bowl of all awakening periods. Because also, I've been shown that we will be communicating more so through the use of telepathy.
I have heard
And
that a lot
yeah,
lately.
yeah. And that telepathy, that consciousness will be connecting us in new ways and creating new pathways in the energy that we haven't experienced before in that way. I have not listened to the telepathy tapes yet, but I will.
Me neither.
The podcast. I know everybody keeps telling me, I'm like, I know, I will. But I do hear that there's a place called The Hill, and that there are people that take their consciousness and go to this place called The Hill, and they convene there. And that actually feels like very much what I've channeled about coming together in different ways through the use of consciousness and telepathy.
Wow, that's fascinating. I had not heard about the hill. I have heard a lot about telepathy really coming up and a lot more people being in tune with that, whether they're skeptics or not. And because of that, a lot of the things that are being hidden can no longer be hidden because everyone's able to just feel into it. And also the part about growing your own foods and being more sustainable and staying in your own communities to get the type of help or support that you need. I've heard of all of those things. The hill I have not heard about. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's really just in what I picked up here and there since I haven't watched or listened to
Yeah.
the podcast yet. But The Hill has also been compared to something that Robert Monroe, who has the Monroe Institute,
Hmm.
and developed a lot of remote viewing protocol, that the hill and what Robert Monroe calls the park are, I think, very similar. It's like locations on the other side that
Uh-huh.
maybe we call it the other side, but it's just like in another dimension, another space.
Hmm.
But the hill apparently is where people will gather. And I've heard that there are even like people that will go there and like lecture and share information at the hill. And then the park, as Robert Monroe describes it, is a place on the other side where those that have passed are there and they're helping people that have recently passed kind of get acclimated back over to the other side. Yeah, and the way that he describes it, it sounds like a park, like a city park that you may go to, but that it's really to serve a purpose of connecting on the other side. So I think the park and the hill are probably uh, pretty similar.
Is the hill some place you go to like in astro traveling? Is that?
Yeah, because from what I understand, like people, and I've heard the example of like nonverbal um, individuals with autism that they've described in the hill and how they have visited the hill. What I've gathered, it sounds like astral traveling. It sounds like they're taking their consciousness and moving it into this location where many of them gather. So it feels to me like the hill is like an actual location that people or souls have created on the other side or in another dimension that people can astral travel to.
Mm.
It's like saying I'm going to go to the Statue of Liberty, like
Yeah, yeah,
that's a
yeah.
location here on Earth. So it feels like however this was crafted, constructed, that it has become a location. Maybe it's something similar like coordinates, or
Yeah.
your soul could like tap into these coordinates and astral travel to that location. But I guess I need to listen to the podcast.
Wouldn't it be cool? We'll meet there and then we'll see if we can say something to each other and then come back like, hey, was that you?
Yeah, I think people are already doing that because
Yeah.
the podcast has become so popular that
Hmm.
people are taking themselves there that aren't, nonverbal autistic individuals. Like they're like other people that are, hey, I want to give this a try.
Yeah.
So
It's
I think,
fascinating.
yeah, and I think that's also lending to the rise in consciousness because more
For
people are
sure.
open to it.
Hmm. And the park, the way that you describe the park, as you're describing it, I'm feeling like, do we actually need that? I mean, don't can we just like cross over without having to go through the park and be acclimated by other people who have crossed over?
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a lady one time who's a spirit that came forward. She's popping into my awareness. She told me during a mediumship session that she was an orientation leader on the other side. She had described it like going to college and being on a college campus and not
Wow.
knowing where to go. And she was there like helping people reacclimate. So and that happened well before I had heard about Robert Monroe's description of the park.
Uh-huh.
So I do think there's like a reacclimation to get back over there. It's like you just came out of your incarnation. Like, okay, like let's decompress and get you back to this vibration because it's a very different frequency.
Mm. When people have, I listen to a lot of stories about near-death experiences, and a lot of them talk about, going to the side or seeing their loved ones or, the light and all of this. I haven't heard anyone talk about this space. Do you feel perhaps it's because they're not actually there? They're just like visiting, coming back?
Oh, yeah. I think that because I've also studied a lot of near death experiences too. I find them incredibly fascinating.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity when I was a college student at UNLV in Las Vegas. Dr. Raymond Moody, who is one of the world's leading experts on near death experiences, he was my teacher for a
Wow.
semester. So I got to learn
Amazing.
from him, and it was absolutely just next level. So yeah, I think for some of them, I think they don't get like far enough in. Like
Mhm.
they get a sampling of the first stages, which I believe are the light, the tunnel that you go through. You feel that immense love. You have a life review. You see people that you knew in life and connect with them. So I think that that's all kind of the early stages, and I think after that would be like where you're like, okay, I'm here and I'm staying, and so let me figure out the rest of this. So it's a great observation that you have because I do think that that is the case. Um, but I think also that there's a part of the other side that we are also co-creating
Yeah.
because some people that are really religious will describe like having an experience with Jesus on the other side, while people that didn't have a religion that they practiced when they were alive, they don't describe Jesus when they cross over. And so I think that our beliefs do impact what we see and
Hmm.
experience on the other side. So I think in some ways, Earth is similar to the other side. Like people here on Earth in most countries have a choice of do I want to be religious or not, and what religion do I want to practice? And some are atheists. And so people can kind of go do what they want with that. And it feels to me like that's also the case when we cross over, that there's something about our beliefs still being a part of our experience over there.
Yeah. Amazing. Wow. Um, tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with you and how you help them.
Yeah, these days I love teaching a lot about psychic development and tarot cards and whew, I've got all kinds of classes on my website. That's the best place to find me and find my socials and everything. It's spiritandspark.com. And yeah, I put out a lot of content on socials. I do a lot of 60-second reels on Instagram and Facebook with predictions that are coming up and what I'm feeling spirit wants people to hear. So I produce a lot of social media content. So make sure you check that out too. But yeah, spiritandspark.com is the best place. Yeah.
Amazing. And I'll put all of your information in the notes. So if you want to go check it out, it will be right there. Is there anything that I didn't touch on or that I didn't ask you that you would like to share with the audience?
You know, as you asked me that question, there is a Rumi quote. I love Rumi, the poet. And there's a quote that says, live life as if everything is rigged in your favor.
Oh,
And I
love that.
think that, oh, I have chills as I say it.
Mm,
I think it's this beautiful reminder that life is happening for us and not to us. And so, if we can remember that everything is unfolding in a way that will teach us new things, new wisdom, help our soul evolve, then, we move through life with a lot more flow, a lot more grace if we remember that it's all happening for us and that we're, co-creating this life with the universe and this is all temporary. The good and the bad is all temporary. And so just do your best each day and just try to remember that it's all working out for you. I think that's what I would like to say.
I love that. Um, I understand that. I love that quote that you just. I also got the chills when you were saying it. But, however, what about someone who is really deep in some type of their own challenges, life challenges, who cannot see the part of how is this happening for me? Like, let's say
Yeah.
somebody who just lost a child, or their job or their home or something like, and how can we help them see that this is happening for them when they're right there in the middle of that chaotic time of their life?
Yeah. I think when you're in it,
Hmm.
I'll be honest, it's hard to find that silver lining when you're in it. But I think even if you wake up in the mornings and have gratitude for your breath,
Mm,
and you just know on some level that it will make sense one day, then maybe that's all the intention can be for now, is that one day it will make sense. But to try to find the meaning of why in the midst of the storm, it's almost impossible, I would say.
yeah.
It's usually when we get to the other side of that challenge
Mm,
that we can really see it. Because how many instances have we seen where a tragedy has led to something absolutely incredible that gets birthed into the world? And I've noticed that the souls, the people that are associated with some of the biggest losses and tragedies are usually the most advanced souls that come in, even if it's just for a short time, because of the impact their loss will have in all of the people that knew them and the ripple that will have out in their community and the opportunity for the soul's growth in all of those people. And so it can sound really easy just to be like, yeah, find the silver lining in this. But that isn't fair to the people that are going through it.
yeah.
So give yourself the time and the space and whatever grieving process that you're in, give that to yourself and allow whatever the blessing is that comes out of it to arrive right on time, even if that's years later.
Oh, I love that. So,
Yeah.
so heartfelt. I have one more question because it just came up as you were speaking. When someone has a session with you or are teaching them, are you able to tell about their soul, like what they're meant to do, or how advanced their soul is? If that was a question that they wanted to know.
Oh, yeah. So I have a class on past lives and reincarnation, which is really interesting because I love talking about that.
Hmm.
And I think that looking at the Akashic records for the individual is probably, in my experience thus far, like one of the better ways to look at why you incarnated this time.
Mm.
Like, what is it that you wanted to learn? Because it's usually correlated to other lifetimes that you had and what you haven't quite like put the stamp on that you've learned and completed. And so looking at the Akashic records of this lifetime and other lifetimes, I think is really, really helpful. But I would also point to astrology, and the North Node in someone's natal chart can really give a lot of clues as to why someone incarnated, like what their North Star is meant to be. And so looking at where the North Node is in the chart and what zodiac sign and what house, that can give you some clues as well. And a little fun fact, some astrologers believe that the South Node, which is directly across from the North Node, also gives us clues about our last lifetime.
Wow.
So we can look at astrology charts for that as well. Yeah, there's so much to access that we have. It's like a big giant rabbit hole that never ends.
For sure, for sure. Amazing. Oh my God. Well, thank you so much, Dallisa. This has been an incredible, so rich, such a rich conversation we had. Thank you for being here.
I really enjoyed it from the bottom of my heart, and I hope that everyone listening got some kind of magic out of it. So thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. And with that, we'll say goodbye and I'll see you next time. If you enjoy this podcast and the content, I ask you to please like it and subscribe if you really like it, and share with as many people as you feel would really enjoy the content and the stories, because that is the only way that this podcast will grow. So more people can get the messages that you see here right now. And with that, I love you, send you so much love, and I will talk to you next time. Bye bye.